awesome. That just gave me goosebumps.
Thank goodness. We can all relax now. She's totally a woman your mother warned you about.
I had a feeling she was. Hey, Warners, welcome to Women Your Mother Warned You About,
the podcast that makes sales sexy again. I'm Rachel Tipton, mom, realtor, and creator of The Closing Curve.
And I'm Gina Tremarco, founder and sales trainer at Pivot 10 Results and Carolina Improv. How's it going, my bride-to-be, Rachel?
It's good. I've been told I'm one of the most calm brides people have encountered because I'm just being chill.
That is cool. By the time people hear this episode, you will already be hitched, but we are in the countdown.
Yeah, and I just was thinking about when I said my name a few seconds ago, I was like, oh, we'll have to have a whole episode about me changing my name.
Yes, and does that mean we're going to have to change all of the future artwork? It's okay.
We will get around to that. I will get around to all that because there's anyone who's changed their name in the 21st century knows that there's 4,000 things to change your name on. Like I was thinking my name tag for my real estate company and like everything online and da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm,
you know.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Well,
it's all good.
Though. He's amazing.
He is amazing, and the glimpses of the wedding dress I can't wait to see it.
You're the only person, aside from my mother, who's seen that.
Well, I feel
picture.
special, and then it hit me. I think I texted you about that. I'm like, oh, she needs a bachelorette thingy, and I'm not going to be there. So we'll have like a post. Well, we're getting together after, so
yeah,
we'll have a celebration. But let's dive into today's episode. We have a guest on the show today. She is Margery Miller, president and owner of PeopleBiz Inc. She works with people who are ready to get out of the box and lead more productive, purposeful, meaningful lives. Oh, I could always use that. Margery is a seasoned business veteran, having owned and managed a manufacturer's rep agency for 29 years before selling it to her employees and putting her focus on PeopleBiz, which was a side business during her rep years. God, she sounds so interesting. She helps people understand how to master the business of life. In 2014, she launched, listen to this, Great Girls Network, kind of like a spinoff, Good Old Boys Club, maybe. We'll talk to her about that. Great Girls Network to enable women to make more meaningful connections and be able to access their inner voices and authentic selves. After growing the Great Girls Network into a membership organization, she has put her focus on its development. Margery recently published Confessions of a Recovering help-a-holic, the first of the Great Girls Network series of books.
Goodness. She has a lot of great stuff to talk about with us. Super excited. And her LinkedIn profile says, and I quote, "We started Great Girls Network to give women a sanctuary to be themselves. Whether in our large semi-annual gatherings or our smaller track meetings, we encourage women to speak their truth, be open about issues that concern them, and to break the patterns of comparing and competing that get in the way of our growth. Women don't network like men. We build relationships and we want to connect on a deeper level. Great Girls Network gives us that safe place to do that." And so true. Guys don't always want to go deep. They want to be bros, right? And like women need to go a little deeper so that we feel like we can trust one another.
Right. Like we just connect that way, which makes us different, which I think gives us a competitive edge. You know what I really love about that LinkedIn quote is that the Great Girls Network gives women a sanctuary to be themselves. I love the wording sanctuary because I feel like I need a sanctuary most of the time.
Yeah. Yes. And finding that inner sanctuary, in the midst of chaos during the day just don't work all the time. Gotta have a real sanctuary.
Well, I'm excited to talk to her about that and everything she's doing. I think for, when you look at her background, being in manufacturing and that right there, the boys club, and I'm dying to know what she thinks of the name of our show.
Right? What's not to love?
Exactly. Anything else we should tell our listeners before we get started with this episode?
Yes, Warners, if you haven't given us a review yet, please go to our show on iTunes and give us 5 stars. It's our favorite, and we are out and out making the asking for 5. And leave us something fun we can read on upcoming episodes. You can access our iTunes page from our website, womenyourmotherwarnsyouabout.com.
Awesome. Yes, please. We need more reviews. That really helps us get found. So let's get on. Let's get on with this episode featuring Margery Miller. Hey, Margery, welcome to Women Your Mother Warned You About. Rachel and I are so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Super glad to have you, Margery. Welcome.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I want to just kind of like jump right into with you is the Great Girls Network, because it's such a good fit for us because we are the women your mother warned you about. And I know we briefly talked about, different things in different generations, like, you speak when you're spoken to, but Great Girls Network, Women Your Mother Warned You About. I'm kind of curious, what do you think of the name of our show? Because I really want your opinion.
Well, I am one of the women that your mother warned you about, but I have been since the early years, because I was a radical back in the 60s. So awesome. I was definitely one of those women that was, in fact, when I married my second husband, my mother-in-law thought it was a scandal because I'd been on the front page of the Dallas Morning News having been arrested for incitement to riot. So you all are just joining the club as far as I'm concerned. So rock on.
Awesome. That just gave me goosebumps.
Thank goodness. We can all relax now. She's totally a woman your mother warned you about.
I had a feeling she was, because I'm like, Great Girls Network, she's got to be.
The 60s and that whole era of women coming to their own, I don't even know how to say it. You know what I mean? That must have been a really cool time to be around.
It was a really cool time, but the sad part is that I get kind of misty and teary-eyed over how little has changed.
Wow. Why do you say that?
Because we were doing consciousness raising sessions in the 60s, talking to women about how we could speak up and how we could grow and how we can expand our opportunities. And yet when you look at the corporate structures of America, especially, but actually everywhere in the world, women have a very low percentage of leadership roles. They're more employed than men, and they're more educated than men, but they're not in leading roles. And the women of color have certainly not been able to advance. So you can understand why. I'm sitting here talking about it, and I've got tears in my eyes. If you could see me, you'd see them.
Gosh, that's so true, though.
It is true.
Wow.
Margery, I'd like to know your thoughts on what things can be done to continue to move things forward. Nothing really, sometimes things can't happen overnight. Now we're talking decades, but what things can be happening to continue to make change?
Well, I think what you're doing is part of it by speaking up and speaking out. That is, I honestly think, the key. And I'm looking for all kinds of ways to do it. That's why we started the Great Girls Network, because I was at a big, huge meeting and I couldn't introduce enough women to each other. It was a meeting that combined nonprofit and for-profit business people. And I knew so many different women from different backgrounds. I just could not introduce enough to each other. So I told my friend Susan Hoff, who is a way up there, Chief Strategy Officer for the United Way Metropolitan Dallas, I said, we need to start the Great Girls Network. And she said, okay. And she lent her name to it. And then I, of course, do the work because she's got too big a job to help too much. But that's why we did it. And what we do in Great Girls is give women a place, a sanctuary, a safe space to speak their truth and to actually examine the questions that are troubling them in terms of how they can grow and change in their jobs, in their families, in their social lives, and in all kinds of ways. So I kind of finally realized it has to start small and you grow from there. It has to be organic or it's not sustainable.
What are some of the things that come up at Great Girls Network that women do bring to the table, to the sanctuary, which we love that word, by the way. We talked about it in our intro. What are they bringing to the sanctuary that seems to be some of their biggest challenges?
Well, one woman came and she's got two young children, very young children, and an older husband. And she's in her late 20s and said, he's not talking to me right now. I'm not sure if I want to stay married or not. Of course, we worked it through with her and she's still married, but she had a place to talk about it. Another woman came last week and said, this is the only place I can talk about this. And she said, I've been in the same job, in the same marriage for a long, long time. And I was 19 when I got married. Now I'm trying to figure out what else is there in life. She's not even 41 yet. She's trying to figure out where else does she want to go and how else does she want to live. Another woman comes and says that she's got an opportunity to change careers and go back into public office from a private law practice. And she's trying to figure out, is that the thing to do or not? And she gets feedback from people. Or another woman is still supporting her son, who's 25 years old and has graduated college with a master's degree that she paid for. And he's still expecting her to fund his apartment because he hasn't gotten himself a job yet. So we're saying, kick him out, go for it. So, the kind of voices in response to all of those issues vary depending on kind of what needs to be heard in the room. And what happens every single time is that the women who hear the responses go, okay, now I know what to think about. Now I know how to go about this. And they leave with a sense of gratitude.
All right, I'm going to say we need this on the East Coast. We need a Great Girls Network because before we even got on today, I started talking with Gina about we need to create something where women have a place to say that stuff, because in today's world, especially with social media where everybody's trying to look good and look like you got it together, it's not always the case. As we all know, as women, we fall apart and things fall apart, and it's a rough world for women out there sometimes, and it's a sanctuary to say those things to other women and get women's input. It just sounds like heaven.
It is. And I do 3 of those meetings a month. They're called track meetings. And I do 3 of them a month and I lead them. I'm an experienced coach, life coach, and facilitator. So I feel confident doing it because I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to get them to be my client. I'm not trying to get them to do anything. And my only hesitation with letting Great Girls Network grow very rapidly is that the women who run these things, these groups, these sanctuary women's circles, need to be able to come at it from that place of no agenda, no proselytizing. I have to sometimes watch myself to stop talking because I want to hear the other voices. And it's hard for some women to give up that identity of being the authority. I know I have to still work on it. So the other thing that happens is that we have 2 basic rules in Great Girls Network: no comparing and no competing. And we don't want to come in there with the notion that somebody else has anything better or worse than I, and someone else it isn't as smart as I, or I need to be able to be the one who gets heard, or any of that stuff. And my experience as a facilitator enables me to kind of curtail a conversation that's going in a direction that's not really going to be conducive to the energy we're trying to create in the room. And every once in a while it's happened. Another thing we did is we created a membership for this organization at $50 a year. We did this a couple of years ago. We used to only do 2 big gatherings a year. Just to have women in the same room was a big deal. That we're not trying to be over anybody or compete with each other or whatever. But the women who came said, we need more. We need that sanctuary. We need that intimacy of the conversations we can have. So we did a membership so that if you come to what we call these track meetings, we have 3 of them a month, one on the second Monday of every month from 10 to 12, and then 2 Wednesday nights, the first and third Wednesday nights of the month. And unless our schedule gets goofy and we have to change those, then those 2-hour track meetings, the only way you can come is if you've paid your $50 membership, because that means you've accepted the sanctity and the reverence of the meetings. Otherwise, we had people try to bring a drop in before, and they were just out of sync with the energy in the room. So that's the rule. You have to be a member, and you have to have respect for the other women. But I have never had to really criticize or curtail too much, because there's an acceptance of the women in the room. And it could be sometimes only 3 women show up, and sometimes it's 15 women. There's no requirement. You don't have to come a certain number a year. You just come when you can or when you need to talk. It's really amazing.
It really sounds like it. And we need it as women, which was another reason why we created Women Your Mother Warned You About, of having a podcast for women who are in business or sales like Rachel and I, and want to feel safe enough to speak up, say what they think. I think, Margery, and I'd like your opinion on this, I think a reason why we haven't made as much progress as we could have since the 60s is because we take on everything as women, where we take on way more. And why is it that we are not stepping up and saying, no, you know what? This needs to be 50-50. Guess what, husband/father? You need to do X, Y, Z. And as women, it looks like a lot of times it defaults to a woman. And is that the reason why we can't get further ahead faster?
It's a major reason, which is why I wrote the book, Confessions of a Recovering Help-a-holic. And when I say confessions, it's embarrassingly confessional. I wrote that book, and I started as a series of blogs for my Great Girls Network blog page. And on the first one, I realized, as I was writing about realizing what a help-a-holic I've been throughout my life, I realized I was acculturated to do it. I realized I was taught to serve other people more than I take care of myself. And it had been so detrimental to my life in so many ways, even though I consider myself highly successful. I consider myself an independent, vibrant, alive, 71-year-old woman. I'm not worried about my health in a bad way. I mean, I take care of myself. But there are so many subtle, nuanced ways that I don't take or wasn't taking care of myself. And that's what I'm writing about in that book. And in the first blog, I realized help-a-holics need a 12-step program. So I created a 12-step program for help-a-holics. You want to hear the 12 steps? Step 1, add a little cynicism to your life. Ask yourself, what's in it for me? Step 2, stop taking responsibility for other people's experiences.
It's good. Keep going.
Getting heavy already.
Keep going, Margery.
Oh, wait a minute. I get so excited when I talk that sometimes I forget the order of them. So I have to pull them up.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Okay. Step 3, be kinder to yourself. That's something anathema to most women. But I need to be taking care of everyone else. I can't come first. If you were trained in the society I grew up in, that's what you think. Step 4, set clear boundaries with family members. Step 5, remember, help is the happy side of control. When you help people, you're trying to control an outcome.
Truth bomb.
Step 6, this is really one of my favorite ones. Step 6, stop thinking, with me, it'll be different.
Oh.
Now, the first 6 steps I kind of lumped together in part 1 as facing yourself, because that's exactly why women don't advance, is they're not built, it doesn't build into us to face ourselves we keep looking outward in ways to help. Now, I'm not saying every single woman on the planet is like this. I know some women who really don't need to read that book. But the majority of women I know need that book. And in fact, some of my men clients have said to me, you wrote that for me, because they're also help-a-holics. Okay, so now part 2 is healing yourself. Okay? Step number 7. Learn the art of proactive waiting. That means while you're waiting for a decision to be made, you take care of your own life. You're not in control of what's going on around you. All you can really control is how you proactively go about your life.
So far, that's my favorite. Continue.
Okay, wait till you see step 8. Learn to live in the fertile void.
Ooh, tell us more about that.
Okay, so the fertile void is the part where you plant the seeds, you get the garden ready, you plant the seeds, but if you go and dig them up to see if they're growing, you're going to destroy the little root hairs that are letting them grow. So the difference between step 7 and 8, proactive waiting adds to it trust. And whether it's trust in the universe or trust in yourself or trust in your religion or whatever it is, you have to come up with some ability to wait and be proactive while you're waiting for the thing you dream about to come true. And you also can't be attached to the outcome of what it's going to look like, because you could have thought you planted red flowers and they come up yellow. Are you going to not love them?
Wow.
So true. So often.
I think Rachel and I are going to be holding each other a lot to step 8.
Yeah. And I also hope you go and buy this book, too.
We will. We have to.
Okay. Step 9, find a group and learn from them, which is exactly the basis of the Great Girls Network.
Okay.
Step 10, learn to actively receive. That was my hardest chapter to write because I have to learn to say, yes, thank you. Oh, yes, I can let you help me. I would love to have help. But proactive, hard-charging women tend to just step back and take care of everybody else and not ask for what they want. And that's a key reason women don't get raises. In fact, the other night you were talking to me about what happens in the track meeting. A young woman, she's 27 years old. She has a fairly new position. She's been there a year. And she went to her boss and asked for a raise. And the boss said, okay, we're going to give you a promotion. We'll give you a new title, but we can't give you the raise yet because you need to wait this period of time. But she came and she talked all about how much it meant to her that she was able to do it, to ask for it, to reach out, and that she learned from the experience and she's willing to do it again. If it doesn't happen, she's going to go back and fight for herself again. Now, how many women who are over 30 or over 40 have done that consistently in their lives? So that goes back to your original question, why is it women don't advance?
Right. We hold I think women, and I'll say I'm definitely ahead of that. I'm trying not to hold myself back, but I think a lot of times when we're complaining or saying we're not getting ahead, it's because we're not asking for what we want.
Exactly. We're not asking for what we want. So step 11 is learn to do things differently so you only do what you love. And that doesn't mean that you just stop doing things you didn't think you loved. It means learn to love them.
Yeah.
And I use the example of taking out the trash in the book. If you want a wonderful, clean house, learn to enjoy taking the trash out instead of thinking it's drudgery.
Yeah, that's, on a weird tangent today, I was thinking about, when things go wrong in our lives and how, we're trying to, everyone says, be grateful, be grateful. I'm grateful for the bad things I don't experience. I don't even know how to articulate that. It's not just about being grateful for what you have. Be grateful for some of the things you don't have that would actually make your life worse.
But you've just led me to 12 step. Step number 12,
look at this.
which is live a life of gratitude.
Perfect.
what I talk about in the book is how grateful I am for the bad things that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if those things hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have grown and I wouldn't have learned.
Yeah.
And I've listed all these things. In fact, sometimes I lie on the massage table and think of all the men. I'm one of those so many men, so little time women. And I think of all the men that have flitted through my life, and I watch them fly away like birds. Or I think of them like a field of beautiful flowers, and they're out there, and I don't have to go deal with them anymore.
Oh my God, when I grow up, I want to be Margery.
Well, I'm just having a really good time doing all this.
Wait. My favorite part, Rachel, I don't know if you picked up on this. My favorite part is when Margery said, when I'm lying on the massage table. Did you get that?
Yeah, I didn't miss that. Don't think I missed that.
Well, self-care has become a major part of my life. And when you're 71, if you haven't got a habit of self-care, you're already in a big problem.
Right.
I would suggest you all started at your very young age. I'm looking at your beautiful faces, and I know you're a whole lot younger than I am. And I say, start it now.
Oh, Margery, before I got on the road, and I'm in Dallas this week, but I got a massage before I left town.
Yay!
I'm all about it. And I feel strongly about the practice of yoga personally, because sometimes it's work, but sometimes it's self-care, and it's definite going inward. And so many of those things that you stated in your 12 steps are so profoundly true. And I definitely agree that everyone needs a 12-step program, because those kind of 12-step based programs, including what you just shared, it's all about going inward and caring for yourself. It's about gratitude and humility and knowing that getting yourself right gets everything around you right for everyone else. And I think, as you mentioned, and I think it exists in today's world too. As a mom, for a while there, I was just caring about everybody else and going a million miles an hour. And, it's part of the reason I ended up so sick a few years ago. And I just was grinding way too hard. And now I try to take things like 2 steps slower rather than fit 10 more things in my day. I try to take it 2 steps slower.
I totally agree with you, Rachel. And I think that's the way to do it. In fact, I'm now writing a column for an online magazine called Prime Women for women over 50. And my particular column is about what really works for life over 50. And the first 2 columns I've written, the first one was on how to stop the aging process, fall in love with yourself, and learn how to really love who you are. And the second one that I just finished is a beginning one on self-love, on self-care and boundaries, because those 2 things go together. And that's what you're doing. You're setting some boundaries in your life. You're saying, okay, I'm only going to fit this many things in there because I've got more life than that to live. I think that's wonderful. The point you really make is that you've been willing to discipline yourself. And so many women are willing to discipline their children, but not themselves in terms of what it takes to have self-care. It takes real energy to make sure you take time for yourself.
Margery, I have a little bit of a confession that goes along with this story. So we were supposed to record this a couple days ago, and I got stressed out about it because there was some miscommunication along the way, but I didn't have the right equipment with me to come over to you to do it. And I started almost internally beating myself up on okay, how do I make this happen? Maybe I should go to Best Buy and see if I can find some equipment. And I started spinning into this craziness. And then I said, no, I'm just going to reschedule it and do it in a way that's not going to stress me out. I don't have to do that. And hopefully Margery's available and hopefully Rachel is available. I'm not going to try to perfectly meet everything on my schedule.
Well, I congratulate you, because actually on last Friday, I was going through some stuff that I've now spent the entire weekend working through, and including conversations this morning about it, to where I'm in a much better place emotionally than I was last Friday.
Perfect.
And so, see, my theory is, I learned this from a woman named Angela Airy, and she wrote a book called The Fourfold Way, which I highly recommend. She's since passed on. But she wrote the fourfold way is show up and choose to be present. This is the way of the warrior. The next one is pay attention to what has heart and meaning. This is the way of the healer. Tell the truth without blame or judgment. This is the way of the visionary. And be open to outcome, not attached to outcome. This is the way of the teacher. And in the teacher chapter, she quotes Harrison Owen, this guy that started open space technology. It's a whole way of having big meetings. Harrison Owen's 4 immutable laws of the spirit. Whoever are present are the right people. Whenever it begins is the right time. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. And when it's over, it's over. And I learned that in 1993, and I have been hoping to live by that. And that's the way I look at all those situations. You reschedule because it just works differently, and everything's going to work out fine because of those things.
And you know what? And just hearing you say it the way you say it, Margery, sounds so carefree without stress. And that's, I think comes down to also how we frame it for ourselves.
Exactly. I'm not very interested in stress because I've already had to have 3 stents put into my coronary arteries.
There's an aha.
And all 3 of them came from stress. I also have genetic coronary artery disease from my father's side of the family. I have 3 sisters. All 3 of us have heart stents, but 2 of them have had heart attacks. I haven't. Mine was prophylactic. I had tests done where they said, okay, we need to go in, and they found blockages before I had a heart attack. So I'm extremely grateful for that. But the last time I got one, my doctor said, okay, this is undoubtedly stress, and you have got to figure out a way not to have that. I committed to that.
Well, that's kind of my big walk away right there. If we had to end this podcast now, I got my learning.
Well,
but no, we're not going.
Keep
going. The whole point is that you have an opportunity every day to think through what is energizing you or what's draining you.
Right.
Yes.
And so that one of the coaching things I learned many years ago that I give clients is just make a list of energizers and energy drainers. And when you actually put them on paper, you put 2 columns down and you write a list of what energizes you in your life and what drains your energy. It's a lot easier to let go of the things that drain your energy when you've got them written down and you face them. See, we're back to facing yourself.
Okay, Warners, did you hear that? I think that is an exercise that everybody should put into place, both personally and professionally. Energizers and energy drainers.
And it relates back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he talked about we have a life bank and we're either depositing in our life bank or withdrawing from it. One of the great things about being 71 is that I've been studying metaphysics and cosmology since 1970. And so think of all the teachers and all the things that I've learned all these years. And one of the reasons I love Great Girls Network is I have a forum to pass on some wisdom. Because what do you do with it if you're not going to share it?
Oh, you're amazing.
Totally. So good. I was thinking about, and I'm sure that you have some thoughts, Margery, on self-talk. And I know one of my really the hardest battles of my life is my terrible, terrible negative self-talk that I used to engage in. And I have positively brainwashed myself throughout the last probably 10 years of my life. And what's probably so wonderful about the Great Girls Network is, like, all the negative self-talk that we have inside, if we speak it out loud, then all the women around us are going to be generally going to say, that's ridiculous. When we say to ourselves, you're stupid, you're fat, you're dumb, you're not good enough, you shouldn't take time for yourself. You know what I mean? And when you speak it out loud to a bunch of other women, it diffuses it immediately, or write it down.
There's several things I want to say about that. One is the book, The Artist's Way. Maybe you've heard of it.
Read it.
It gives you wonderful instructions to journal. And from 1993, from June of 1993 to June of 1994, I literally journaled minimum 3 pages every single morning for that entire year. And it is what enabled me to get in touch with my inner voice and hear what I was saying. But I also just got a lot of that brain noise out of me. It's just writing it down and you throw it away. What she says in the book, you don't read it again. You just throw away all that stuff So that's a good way to get that habit of letting it out. The second thing is when you do say it out loud, you actually can reassess, do I even mean that? Because if you haven't heard yourself say it, you might not even know whether you mean it or not. And then the feedback you get from the other women is fabulous because they're kind of going, and oftentimes if one woman talks for 30 minutes or we sort of work on a problem a woman's brought up for 30 minutes in a 2-hour session, instead of people feeling jealous they didn't get a chance to talk, usually they'll turn around and say, hey, that's been on my mind and you brought it up. So we often are sharing similar kinds of brain noises that we don't even realize until we hear someone else say.
Now, I just had an epiphany. Bear with me. I just had this. Margery, are you familiar with Yes and improv?
I studied acting since I was 9 years old. And I did a ton of improv. In fact, I owned a manufacturer's rep firm for 29 years. And many of my quarterly meetings, which were on all day Saturday every quarter, I would bring one of my best friends who's an improv acting teacher. And all of my salespeople would do improv and have to wear funny hats and make up stuff. And it really helped them get in touch with that instantaneous response thing they need as salespeople.
Oh, Margery, that.
So yes, and I am.
Oh my gosh, Margery, I love you. Because that's what our company, when my company Pivot 10 Results does, is we do improv-based sales training. So I'm happy that you know the talk and you know the yes and. What just came to me is an exercise, taking the yes and exercise and pairing women up together. And when we're getting into negative self-talk, this just came to me, right? So think about it. I'm fat, right? And then your partner goes, yes, you're fat and you're really pretty. Yes, I'm really pretty and I still think I'm fat, right? Like we could take that yes and exercise.
Oh, we could go for hours on it.
On helping lift up another woman.
I love that idea. And maybe sometime we'll do that as a funny thing. The thing is with Great Girls, we're starting to have to come up with extra things to do together because our track meetings are so meaningful. We don't want to create a different format there, but we're starting to come up with little different lunch and learn things. And we celebrated International Women's Day and had a lunch and learn thing where 3 different members talked. But I want to get back to one other thing that you brought up, Rachel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Backtrack.
Go.
Definitely.
Brain noise. One of my major recommended books is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Love that book.
And of all my studies and all my work I've done, he gives one of the best explanations of what brain noise looks like, where it comes from, and how you deal with it. And that observer, the more you can become the observer of what that noise is, the more you can become quiet and be able to just say, okay, you can flip through my mind, but I'm not taking you seriously.
Yeah, and I call those brain noises the committee, and so last night, and it's so funny that you say that. And by the way, I've listened to both of Michael Singer's books umpteen times. They're on my hot list of when I need to re-listen. The other one's the
Surrender Experiment.
Surrender Experiment.
Oh, I love that book. It took me
good.
several days to read. One of the problems I had with the Untethered Soul is that my arrogant, asinine self was just not ready to read it because I had done so much study, and I thought I probably know what's in there. And actually I did. However, I read it at the perfect time when one of my best friends just handed it to me. And she said, I have an extra copy of this. I want to give it to you. And that happened to be on New Year's Day. And I spent the next month slowly reading that book, absolutely in heaven, over how much that book reiterated and yet expanded on what I did know and made me feel so much more confident about being my authentic self. And then I bought the Surrender Experiment, and instead of taking a month to read it, I literally sat in bed in February I started at 8:30 in the morning, and I did not get out of bed except to get food and pee until 5:30 that night at evening. And I read that entire book in one fell swoop. just
Oh, it's
loved
so
it.
good.
And actually felt like it was my experience because I have said yes to everything. That's how I became a radical in the 60s. That's how I became a Montessori educator. That's how I married 3 guys before I was 42 and then quit being married after that. And then have had every other experience in my life. It's been a yes and kind of approach. But he gave it validation in that book. And I really appreciated it because I think sometimes I think of myself as an idiot because of all the crazy things I've done.
Right. And, it's so, I think last night may be one of the first times that I really felt, so I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and I have a wedding coming up and a lot of other things going on, of course, as we always do. And my committee decided to start freaking out about every single thing possibly like that it could come up with. But my other self was there going, you really don't need to worry about that. Like I was witnessing it more than getting caught up in it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And if you just watch it, it's like a little show.
It is. It's a terrible show at 2 a.m, but it's easier that way. I wasn't stressed out about it. I just kept calmly, as in, we practice in meditation, calmly like pushing it to the side and trying to put that one away. And then the committee would come up with some other crazy shit to worry about. But it was so interesting. I wasn't stressed out because a lot of times, how that is when we get stressed out in the middle of the night and we're just wound up. It was just more of a different observation. It was.
And what my remedy for when it ever gets stressful, like sometimes I just can't take any more Donald Trump stuff and it'll spin me out. I then turn on Murder, She Wrote and go to sleep quiet.
Hey, gotta love some
because
Angela Lansbury.
TV can calm my mind. I mean, she was just great. She just had a great show, and none of it's horrible. It's not really gruesome, and it just takes it just gets me out of that because every once in a while I'm just admitting that I do not have perfect control over being able to quiet that voice every once in a while.
But I want to because we have so many followers and listeners, Margery, women in business, women in sales, and a lot of them who work in male-dominated. I mean, it feels like most industries are male-dominated. I know they're not, but we have so many followers who say, "Thank you so much for your show. I'm in this male-dominated industry, trying to make it as a sales rep." And there's so many fascinating things about you, Margery, but one thing that really got me was that you owned a manufacturer's rep company and then you sold it to your employees, but you're a woman in manufacturing, owning a business. We can glean so much from you as women in business and sales. Is there some advice that you can give on things that you've learned or best practices from that experience that you had?
Well, it started back. I have to admit that I went into my husband. I had stopped teaching Montessori, and my husband wanted me to not take a big 12-hour-a-day job again as a Montessori teacher. So I said, well, I'm going nuts. I need to just do something. So I supported myself as a secretary through my years of being a radical in the 60s. So I said, let me just come help file invoices. And within a year, he and his dad were partners. His dad retired, and I began to run this business that 11 years later, I divorced my husband and bought him out with 2/3 share of the business and then owned it for another 18 years. So I learned a lot along the way. I didn't start it myself, but I built it myself. And the things that I learned were stop taking it personally when some asking
you can swear on our show, by the way.
What asshole, ass white guy says, why don't you just go make babies instead of getting on the phone and asking us when we're going to ship the order? And I go, hey, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for my customer. And I just made very, very clear from the very beginning that anything I did was in advocacy for the customers we were there to serve. And I held that principle absolutely to the hilt. The second thing is I built a company based on Montessori principles, which was that the owner of the business has a responsibility to hold the container. And then within the container, then people have freedom to grow and change. And as the employees in the company grow, the company grows. And I was very committed to that. That's why I started working there in 1977. By 1981, we were holding quarterly meetings, and my former company to this day still holds quarterly meetings to help people learn and train. As a woman, I had to learn the art of going very quiet when some guy started ranting and raving at me. And one of the guys I remember so vividly, it was a real jerk that we had to put up with for 11 years as a sales manager. He was a sales manager for a factory we represented, and therefore, as the middleman company, we had to comply with these people. We didn't get to choose who those people were. And he would start going, rah, 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 because they loved to call me and tell me that my salesperson did something bad, or they wanted to change how I ran my company. And I would just go very quiet. And then I would say, well, Joe, here's what I heard you say. And he'd say, you're using that quiet voice again. It makes me crazy. But it unnerved him enough to get him off of my back. The other thing that you have to be very careful about is that you don't allow some of these guys to play you, because they get off on you getting ruffled. And so having a sense of equanimity and just being unflappable and going, okay, that's what I'm hearing. Okay, and what did you really want us to do about that? Without agreeing that you're going to do it.
Yeah, our mouths dropped.
That was like a sucker. That was a sucker punch to the gut. That one, I was like, whoa. Because I'm dealing with an experience right now, and a couple of guys doing just that.
They get off on it.
I haven't They do, and I haven't responded. I just am waiting, as in the surrender experience. Experiment, because I don't know how to even answer it. So I'm just
and then if they bring it up again,
exactly.
You say, you don't expect me to take that seriously, do you?
Oh my God, Margery is amazing.
Amazing. I hope that when I grow up, I can be wise.
Well, listen,
too.
I mean, I've got 30 or 40 years on you all. I mean, really. It took me a long time to learn these things. And yes, when I was a lot younger, man, it was awful. And I was stressed and I tried too hard. And my next book in the series that I'm putting out is called Sound Business Bites, which is all the experience I had running my business. I wrote it 25 years ago, and I'm updating it right now because it needs very little update. And it will be the next one in the Great Girls Network series, because it'll come out this spring, because I'm just about finished. I'm really just figuring out the illustrations for it. I've already finished the book. And we've self-published on Amazon, so it's pretty easy. But it's all that stuff on what happens to salespeople and how you feel when you're in a company. So I'll be glad to.
Yeah, please do, because we'll
yeah.
promote it. We'll promote it to our audience. We'll promote it in everything that we do. So please let us know when it's ready.
I will. And the other thing is that when you don't react to people, they don't have any ammunition. That's why I wish the entire press corps would stop even quoting Donald Trump. Who cares what he says? It's only important because we act like it is. And when somebody who is over you, because everybody has a boss, even if you own your own company and you're in sales, you still have bosses, whether it's your customers or your. And okay, so here's my theory. Who's your number one customer?
Me.
Yes. Because if you're not sold on you, who else will be? And who's your number two customer?
I feel like this is a quiz. I answered the first one, Rachel. You.
I would say my family.
Well, your family is included in it. It's your support team. Whoever are your coworkers, the people that work in your company, because you also have a responsibility to sell them on who you are, not because you're trying to win them over, but because you need to show up as someone they can value, and they will support.
Yeah.
Right. They have to believe. They got to
believe
in the mission.
In you, that you're on your mission. And then number three is the customers. So when you're really sold on yourself, and when somebody comes at you in a negative or aggressive way, just take it in stride. Take some breaths and say, what's really important here? What are we really trying to achieve? And keep. That's what I think Michelle Obama means when she says, take the high road.
Yeah.
When they go low, we go high. just take the high sense of, okay, do I need to deal with this to make the sale? Or do I need to ignore it? And choose.
You've brought so many great nuggets and advice to this episode. I can't wait I'm going to actually send this one to transcription right away so we can pull out the nuggets, because there's so much good stuff in here, Margery.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you anytime, and I'm actually looking at doing a Great Girls Network podcast. And we would love that. We would love that. Well, it's time for us to wrap up, but before we go, what are some great ways, and we'll put this in our show notes, what are some ways for people to connect with you, Great Girls Network, anything else that you want us to shout out to our listeners and followers? Okay, greatgirlsnetwork.org. It's very easy to find. And we also take members from all over the world. If you want to join and give us $50 to help support our cause for now. And we're looking at finding a virtual way to have people join our track meetings. So we're not there yet, but we're looking at that. So that's available. Number 2 is go on Amazon.com and buy Confessions of a Recovering
Everybody hear that?
Because
because
you will love having it. It's a quick read. It'll take you less than an hour to read it, maybe an hour. And I have had people come in,
and
back
they can
and
have
buy
right there
the
12 steps, which I think we all need.
Right there, and the explanations of what they mean, and also then you get to know my horrible stories of how I came up with those things.
Awesome. Well, we will promote that to our listeners. It's been really great having you on the show. So we're going to get ready to wrap it up. Rachel and I are going to close out the show. So just hang on for a second, Margery. So thank you, Margery, one more time for being on the show today.
It was utterly a pleasure to spend time with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all of our Warners for listening to this episode of Women Your Mother Warned You About. To connect with me directly or learn more about Pivot 10 Results or Carolina Improv, you can visit GinaTramarco.com.
And to connect with me, Rachel Tipton, visit theclosingcurve.com or find me on social media as Rachel on Real Estate, and find all of our social media links and free downloads on our website at womenyourmotherwarnedyouabout.com.
And hey, one more plug for please give us a rating and a review, and 5 stars is what works best on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, because when we get a review, that's how people find us. And remember, for the best relationships, keep it real, raw, and relevant.
And a little irreverence doesn't hurt either.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This really will get serious soon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I don't think anybody wants it to be serious.
This has been a presentation of the Sell or Die Network. For more podcasts that you can take out into the street and turn into money, visit sellerdienetwork.com.